back. Episode 2. We didn't get canceled yet.
Not yet. We still moving and grooving.
Yeah, episode 2 of 200. I'm calling it right now.
Let's get it.
Calling it right now, man. Welcome to the Moving on Purpose podcast. As we always tell you, if you haven't already, hit that little subscribe button, hit that like button, tell a friend to tell a friend, go to the barbershop, get an edge up on Friday, let everybody know in there. If you haven't listened, you need to tune in.
Yeah, man, spread the word, spread the rumors, just spread something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. For those tuning in for the first time, my name is Cooley.
Be Stu.
And we are here to chop it up with you, peel back these layers of fatherhood, being a husband, working in law enforcement, and everything in between. We are not subject matter experts, but we are expert in telling our perspective of how we working through things.
Yep. We're going to talk about it all eventually. At some point, we're going to hit different topics, emotional topics, funny topics. We just going to talk about it all, man. Keep it balanced. Like episode 1. Everything got to have a balance to it. So
book reviews. We're going to have some guests on here eventually, man. So this is just a start. It's just a start. So
yes, sir.
Speaking of starts, man, let's jump into it. What we talking about today?
Oh, man. Episode 2. Let's go ahead and talk about ego versus pride. What are the difference between ego and pride?
That boy said something, man. That boy said something. So
that struck a nerve. Hold on. He about to preach.
All right. So ego. Ego can be different to people. Ego is
go ahead,
you not wanting to be
Cooley.
wrong.
Preach on
right?
us, man. Come on.
Ego is you not wanting to be wrong, right? It's how you see yourself. It's how you think other people see you. It's how you want to carry yourself.
Entitlement.
And some things you may feel entitled to in a relationship, in your marriage. It's I'm not going to admit I'm wrong because I don't want my wife to feel like she won.
That's some bullshit.
And ego kind of goes hand in hand with pride. I got an ego. When I walk in the room, I can't let nobody, feel like they standing over me or you start talking. I know people at work that talk in third person.
So you Debo.
Yeah, the third person people. I've never talked in third person. Those are people with egos.
Yeah.
Okay? And I will tell you this. When you get married, check your ego at the door. Check it at the door. Because it's not gonna benefit you. Right? Your wife don't care about your ego, and you don't care about your wife's ego. You got to meet each other in the middle. You got to be.
What's that word you're looking for? You got to compromise.
Got to compromise.
Got to do it.
Got to compromise because if you are hard headed, if you let that ego, and we'll get into pride in a minute, if your ego won't let you admit when you're wrong, if your ego won't let you be vulnerable with your wife and have those conversations with her about how she may feel, or how something you said may have made her feel, or something you may have done, how something she may have done, your ego like, I'm not finna admit that hurt my feelings.
Who
is that helping?
It breaks up the communication aspect in a relationship, friendship, relationship, whatever. If you have that ego, you're pretty much going to be lonely at some point in your life.
Yeah.
Because it's just not going to work.
Some
people might tolerate it for so long, but you don't have to deal with the ego. It's just nothing good comes from having an ego when you dealing in a partnership.
And I mean, I go back, like we both were team guys, right? I was a team captain. You were a team captain. 2 different sports, right?
Yeah.
And we all know those cats that had egos on the team. And when you're working together towards a common goal of whether it be football or on offense or on defense, whether it be basketball, right? Yeah. You all have to work in unison, and it's no different in a marriage. Y'all are a team. So me having an ego and feeling like this person needs to give more than I give, or
it's messing up the team dynamic.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna move. It's not gonna work like a well-oiled machine because you gotta check it at the door, or you're gonna end up on the other side of the door.
Right.
By yourself, marriageless. Now let's get into pride. What's the difference?
Oh man, pride, man. I think for pride, it's more in line with just being prideful in yourself, your appearance, your health, your overall, like being happy with what you're doing. Like I'm happy with my product of work. Okay. I'm happy with how I dress up and clean up. I'm prideful. I got to go get a haircut and clean up. I got to make sure my beard is lined up. I got to make sure I look good, because that goes a long way. Being prideful, it's a healthy pride.
Yeah, that's a healthy pride. Like I want my wife to see me a certain way. I got to keep my physique a certain way. I got to make sure I'm hitting the gym.
I want to always keep that attraction. You know what I'm saying?
I want to take
For
pride
me,
in
that
my
confidence.
Yeah, you want to take pride in the way you handle yourself at work. You want to take pride in the way you handle yourself on calls as a police officer, right?
Absolutely.
Because you constantly getting sized up when you walk up to these calls. People call 911. By the time you get out that car and you're walking up to that apartment or that house or that situation, wherever it is,
They know.
they are watching you.
They know.
And they are sizing you up.
They know
And
if
if
you-
you don't take pride in your appearance, your boots are dirty, your
You
clothes are
look
dirty,
goofy.
you look goofy, your
Your
stuff is
belly
untucked,
hanging over your belt.
Man, they're gonna try and get over on you.
Uniform dirty. Like, come on, man.
But if you carry yourself a certain way, I always like to tell my son, man, like when you walk in the room, make sure you speak. When you walk in the room, I want to raise my son. And I try and carry myself. When I walk in the room, I speak. I want the energy to change. I want the energy to change in a positive way.
That boy got confidence. Yeah.
You got to be, and I feel like confidence and pride comes from you being comfortable in your own skin.
Yep.
And I had to learn that from going to a high school. All my friends went to Booker T, and I wanted to go to Booker T growing up in Studewood, right? That was where I was on to. My mom wanted me to go to Reagan. So and she kind of sold me a dream. She was like, "All right, baby, you can go to Booker T next year. You're gonna go to Reagan your freshman year, and then we'll revisit this." Went to Reagan. The majority of my friends at Booker T was getting into stuff they shouldn't have. Ended up going to Reagan. Was told I was gonna play varsity the next year, but it was just kind of me dropped, and like I didn't know anybody, and I had to kind of
find yourself.
I had to find myself,
your identity,
be confident in my own skin.
Yeah.
And sports provided me that confidence because. The
That
work is
stage.
going to speak for itself.
Yeah.
I'm going to outwork the next man, and the dividends are going to pay out on the field, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to bring me confidence that no matter who you line up on the other side of me, I feel like I'm just as prepared as you, right? And that translates into life. Then I went to college. Went to college 1,000 miles away. Morningside College up in Sioux City, Iowa. Brother, I was there for 4 years. Could not point it out on the map for you.
Iowa.
Corn,
tough.
snow, and meat slaughter factories. They used to call it Sewer City because, no offense to the Sioux City people, man, but it was called Sewer City because they had a Tyson package.
You just lost a fan base
and they would
they
would slaughter them pigs, and
I
you could smell it
apologize,
down.
man. Iowa, I rock with you wherever
Man,
it is.
y'all
on
know
there.
it smelled like pig feet at certain times of the day, throughout the week, right? But I got dropped in that situation. That was one of the worst breakouts in acne that I had because of my nerves, because it was just the unknown. But once I got there, I was like, it's no different than anywhere else. And I feel like high school prepared me. You could drop me somewhere, and I'm going to be myself, because the only thing I control is I'm going to be the same person yesterday that I am today, that I am tomorrow. I'm going to be consistent. If you give me a task, it's going to get done.
It sounds like you true to yourself.
I'm saying, that's the pride. You have to take pride in that. And like with this department, the department that we work for, everybody comes in with a clean slate when you work in law enforcement. It's really like high school.
Yeah.
And you have to take pride in your reputation.
Clean. Yeah.
If you go out there and you running from work and you halfway doing reports,
Your
and you
sergeants
halfway
gonna know.
They gonna know.
It's gonna hit you when it's time to promote.
Exactly.
It's gonna,
well, not promote. Even going to a concerned division,
that too.
or trying to go to another
they're gonna
shift.
pull up your reports. They're gonna see your work cards and what you're not capable of doing, or what you do just to clear the board. They gonna know. So you got to be productive and you got to work.
Hey, I got an application for B Stu. He's trying to come over here to this concerned division. What you got to say about him, man? He don't take pride in nothing he do. He just show up.
I'm being patrolled my whole career.
He don't show up. He goes through the motions. But if you take pride in the product that you put out professionally, and you take pride in who you show up for your family, man, it's gonna work in your favor. It's gonna have benefits and dividends. But it can be devil's advocate. Pride can also work against you.
I knew you was going to start this.
I'm just saying.
All right, man. Tell us how.
So, have you ever been around somebody who's so prideful that everybody in the room knows that they're wrong, but they can't admit fault?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't want to admit that they wrong. They don't want to take accountability. We all had them cats on the team that, man, coach hating on me. He don't want to give me an opportunity to do this. He don't want to do that. He just don't like me. He
just sorry.
It wasn't.
He's sorry.
You sorry, and he sees that you don't take pride in the work that you put in. You showing up late to workouts. You showing up. You the last person to practice.
Gratification. That goes back to, you got to put the work in, and you got to see it through.
You last person to practice, first one to leave.
Yeah.
You're not taking pride in the work. You put the work in, so you get when the lights come on, it's time to show up.
Yeah, the big stage.
And everybody sees that, man. So you got them people it's grown men to this day, and this jail's full of people that are so prideful and don't know how to take accountability for their actions and their decisions. It was somebody else's fault that they put themselves in that position that it ended up putting them in jail. And I mean, I do a lot of mentoring with young men at various schools around the city and through the nonprofit, the Houston Prestige Project, HoustonPrestigeProject.com. Go check it out. We donation funded, so
check it
out.
Know, support.
HPP is a proud supporter of the Moving on Purpose podcast, and we're a supporter of them. All right, shameless plug. But when I'm mentoring the kids, man, the main thing I want, like, check your pride at the door, man. Whether it's at home, whether it's in class, whether it's with your spouse. Don't be too proud to say, my bad. I make all of them. I say, hold your right hand up, hold it over your chest. Everybody say, my bad. That's my fault, right? If you get used to doing that, it's okay to make mistakes. You can't be too prideful to admit when you're wrong. Learn from the mistakes. And don't look at it as an L. The L isn't a loss or it's a learning opportunity. It's a lesson to be learned, right? And you come back better than you did the first time, right?
Yeah.
But if you prideful, you ain't learning nothing. You stepping in the same holes, you making the same mistakes, and you wondering why you're not having those same opportunities that other people are getting professionally. You wondering why those arguments last longer in your household because you're too prideful to admit when you're wrong.
You're wrong. But let's piggyback off what you said. Admitting when you're wrong.
Yeah.
Can you admit when you're wrong?
Absolutely.
Easy. You ain't gonna hesitate.
Easy.
You ain't gonna start stuttering like
Easy. So,
all right.
like, and it didn't come like that at first, man. We've been married 11 years. My wife would tell you, man, I used to be quiet. Like when she would, bring things to my attention where she said she wanted me to do better in those areas, I'd be like, man, I wouldn't give her no feedback. Well, that was just as bad as, just continuing the same thing. Like, not saying anything is not letting her know that I'm learning from what I did. Yeah. So I'm quick to say, baby, like, I'm not prideful. Like, I'm not trying to beat you in an argument.
Right.
I understand I might win this argument and I won the battle, but I'm going to lose the war.
Every time.
Because we all in the same house, so I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll tell my wife, like, look, I'm at a place now in our marriage where it wasn't my intention. If it came out that way, that's my fault. I'm sorry. I understand. And it's really about being empathetic. My wife does a great job of telling me, hey, put yourself in my shoes. How would you feel if A, B, and C?
That's a powerful statement right there. Put yourself in my shoes.
You won't do that if you're prideful, though.
So what was your evolution into changing that for you? Like, what made you change admitting when you were wrong? Like, how did you go about, what was that turning point or that changing point where you were like, I got to make a change?
So I never really had a problem, and it's weird. I got 2 degrees in communications, right? We'll get in front of a crowd of however many people, 1,000. I talk to the people, 10 people the same way I'm going to talk to 10,000.
Okay.
Don't have a problem communicating. Don't have a problem professionally.
You plan on running for the mayor anytime soon?
Bro,
I'm just asking.
I don't like politics.
Okay.
So I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong in sports. I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong in my professional life. Yeah. But there's no emotions attached to that. So what I had to learn early on in my marriage is like, man, why is it so hard? I'm a subject matter expert in communication. Why can't I communicate with my wife? Why is it so hard? Because those emotions are attached to it. So then I had to check myself, look in the mirror and be like, hey man, why is it so hard for you to like not have this conversation by the end of the night? Why are you dragging this over and being petty and using this as an opportunity to watch the game in peace because you know she's mad at you? Yeah. Who is that really benefiting, right? Now I'm like, I go to her now because she makes me have those what used to be uncomfortable conversations. Yeah. I go to her like, all right, baby, you ready to talk? You know what I'm saying? Because I got to organize my thoughts and make sure that my emotions aren't too highly charged into what I'm saying because then I'm not really speaking with logic. I'm speaking on emotion, and nobody's really going to benefit from that. Okay. But once I process and I self-evaluate, like, you know what? I was wrong here. I was wrong there. I feel like maybe she could have did this, that, and the other, but I got to be able to communicate that to her. That came in time and just maturation within my marriage, and I'm still working on that. But my wife will tell you, man, my bad. I'm sorry. Yeah. You know, a lot of times I don't be realizing that I'm doing it. I go, but if she points it out to me, I'm not gonna be like, I ain't do that. But some people are married to people that don't ever say sorry. I just
That's tough, man.
I don't understand that, man. Well, how's that look for you?
2 words. For me, man, I found myself, I can't stay mad long.
I can't.
I get to forgetting what.
Same.
So I don't even waste time. I don't like to go to sleep mad because for me it's expiration date time, whatever. So for me it's like I know how to navigate through my emotions and my feelings to be present in the time. So before it goes and it gets bad, let's talk about it.
Mm.
What could have been done differently?
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure it out before it gets bad. Let's stop it before it gets to that point. But let's communicate. So I'm a big person on communicating. That's the only way you're going to get through it.
Absolutely.
You know, because if you don't communicate, you let it build up, then now y'all saying things that y'all don't mean.
Can't take it back.
You can't take it back. So if you could prevent that, I'm like, let's just, let's go for it. And I use just humor and sense of humor and everything. Like, when you're wrong, you're wrong. Yeah, I might laugh about it and joke around, but I can admit, like, yeah, I messed up.
Yeah.
It was me.
And in the grand scheme of things, a lot of times, like, y'all be so caught up in the argument that whatever you arguing about ain't even that serious.
What are you arguing about? That's why I got to the point. It's like, yo, this shit not even serious.
It's not.
Like, you step out of the moment, you like,
I'm tripping. Why am I still? I don't stay mad either, and that bothers her. Because
I'm not.
I'll get over it within a couple hours, and she'll.
I don't even need a couple hours.
Man, depending on what it is.
Man, I'm joking with you like nothing happened. We can talk about it and nothing happened right there. It just keeps it going. It keeps it flowing, and I don't have time for all that. Man, we in the house now. We walking around each other like we don't know it. For what, man? Let's address it. Let's laugh. Let's crack a joke to break the ice, and let's figure it out.
That's something I'm working on getting better at, man. But like I said, and my wife has gotten a lot better with that too. The time that we stay upset with each other, it's just shrinking. The longer that we're together, the shorter that time period is, the sooner we are like finding a solution to whatever it is that we had a disagreement on.
Okay.
And I think that just comes with, like you said, time in and maturity. Maturing in your marriage. So
and then just understanding what you have. Like when you have a few bad moments, but then you got time to think and about all the good. What are we fighting for? That's me. And I tell my wife, I be like, at the end of the day, like you assuming, and I saw that on the Inky Johnson video that I posted the other day. Like a lot of cats leave their house and they don't say goodbye to their wife or their kids because they may be upset. I'll talk to them when I get home. Who told you was gonna make it home? Who promised you that? Yeah. Who
said you was gonna make it home? And now you didn't let some petty argument where you couldn't see past your pride, check your ego at the door.
Right.
And now God forbid, something may happen to your family or something may happen to you, and that's the last communication that y'all had.
And you're going to feel like shit.
Yeah.
You're going to feel bad. I should have. I regret. Now you got to live with that regret for the time being. It's not worth it. Address it in the moment, get over it, and move forward.
How about, let me ask you this. So we talking about that with our wives. We talked about that with our jobs. We talked about that with our teams. How about that with your kids?
Oh, with the kids?
Like, because my wife does a great job of this, and I follow her lead, and I do it a lot more. It's like, your nerves might be on edge. You might be tired. You work night shift.
Yeah.
And you might catch yourself snapping at them for something that you didn't necessarily need to snap at them. And it may not be like you just completely crash out on them, right? But you snap at them, you may raise your voice.
Might change out
and
a
then
little bit.
as time goes by, you like, man, I ain't need to do that. My wife does an excellent job of calling, hey, Mama, sorry. Or if she makes a mistake, she assumes that, something was up and it comes out that it wasn't what it was. She, hey, Mama, apologize. I do the same thing. I'll be like, son, you know why Daddy got upset with you? Let me explain it to you, right? Yeah. And I feel like it's growing their emotional intelligence.
I think, like you said, we're human. You have emotions. Something could have happened wherever. But if you can catch it, educate, and give love behind it, I think that's the best thing you can do for it.
Yeah.
Like if you can explain why it happened and then follow up with just loving and that energy, I think you will be fine. But if it can go a negative way, if you snap, don't educate, don't address it, and then you don't follow up with anything. So then you're creating a whole different, dynamic that you don't want. So it's about addressing, educating, and just like you said, admitting I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, and I mean, we both kind of grew up in the same era. I love my mama to death.
Same here.
I do anything for her, and she knows that. I give her flowers as much as I can. But our parents only raised us based off of what they were taught. And a lot of times they were taught based off of somebody that was barely taught half as much as them, right?
Belt to ass.
Exactly. Belt to ass. That's a good way to take the belt to ass.
Old school approach.
Generation.
Yeah.
And so my mom's approach to raising me and my sister, and she's raising a young man, right? So she had to be strict.
Yeah.
Mama can't. No. But why? Because I said so. There was no explanation. The explanation is you say it again, I'm going to pop you in your mouth.
I didn't learn what explanation was that word until I had my own kids. I'm being real with you. I'm the parent. I'm not explaining myself and why I said it's not happening that way.
I'm a grown up. Stay out of grown folks' business. Stay out of grown folks' mouth. Man. Go out the room with grown folks talking. That's the way I was raised, right?
Yeah.
And my mom told me, she put me to the side one day when my kids were a little bit younger. And my son or my daughter, they were asking me for something. I was like, no, mama, you can't do this, that, and the other. But why? Because if this happens, then that can happen and you can hurt yourself. If that happens, then that can happen, you can hurt yourself. And that's why daddy doesn't want you to do it. Mm-hmm. But daddy, but why? I say, now, daddy already explained himself to you. I didn't have to do that. But at this point, if you ask me again, then I'm going to get upset and you're going to see another side of daddy that you don't want to see. And then they go on about their business. And my mom was just looking like, what in the world is this? And she said, the way that you and my wife talk to the kids, mm-hmm. you give them an opportunity to question, not so much question you as a parent, but you don't want to raise kids that are just like little robots and they don't question.
I don't think it's questioning. It's about understanding.
Well,
but kids are curious. If you say no with no explanation, they're going to try to figure out a way to find out why. So why not address it right then and there like you said?
Yeah.
No. Well, why? Well, because this and this and this can happen. So now they're like, okay, that makes sense. You right. Or now they're thinking twice before they try it, mm-hmm. behind your back or something else like that. Mm-hmm. So it's a different method of parenting and stuff like that. So it's just a different approach.
I feel like you're raising more well-rounded human beings. Mm-hmm. Doing that, I wasn't a explanation kid.
Yeah,
I was a do as I say and don't add. If I have to tell you twice, if I call you by your first, your middle, and your last name, you know it's business, right? Mm-hmm. So with mine, man, I feel like it's grown. You're raising young adults. You're raising human beings that don't just go with what anybody says without questioning it, right?
Yeah, have a mind of your own.
Yeah, I firmly believe like you raise leaders respectfully,
but still have a mind of your own to think for yourself.
Absolutely. Whether that be with me, whether that be with another adult, mm-hmm. whether that be now, I don't want you to question everything your teacher says, but there's a way. It's not what you say; it's how you say it.
Yeah.
And so I want to raise you to like somebody tell you the sky is green. Okay, the sky is green. Why? Because don't ask why. Because I told you so. Like no.
Don't
why?
be an airhead. Like
exactly.
Be intelligent in how you approach it. Find the answer for yourself. If one person won't give it to you, seek that knowledge and figure out why. Yeah. I'm a believer on seeking information and knowledge.
I agree.
That expands your mindset. When you expose to different things, you could expand that way. But just don't take somebody's word for it.
For sure. And I talked to a dad, man, random dad, when I was at my daughter's, I guess not AAU, but club volleyball.
Okay.
I'm at club volleyball with her all day. I'm there by myself. I'm videoing, taking pictures. I'm just chopping it up with one of the dads, and he said he had several daughters, older, some in college, some in high school. Mm-hmm. He was just putting me on game. He was like, look, man, when they get in high school, you have to pivot and change the way that you talk to them. And what I mean by that is now you have to make them figure out things by the way that you present it to them. And what I mean by that is if they ask you a question, Daddy, what does this mean, this, that, and the other? What do you think it means?
See what they know.
If this happens or that happens, like, for example, we talk about the Diddy trial, right? When that listen to me, listen. I'm going
turning with this.
Follow me.
I'm trying, but
so I'm going somewhere with it. So before the Diddy trial, when that first footage came out of him chasing Cassie down the hallway, and he hit her and drug her back and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Everybody was looking at that. Everybody was putting their 2 cents in. I looked at it as an opportunity for me to have a conversation with my oldest daughter. So what I did
Teaching point.
Exactly. So I brought her home, and I looked at it. I said, look, come sit down, Mom. Let me show you something. Mm-hmm. I said, have you seen this? And I showed it to her. She was like, yeah, I think so. I said, now watch the whole thing. And then I turned it off and said, what do you think? I think that she should have just got up, and she should have did this, and she could have did that. I said, well, let me stop you right there. I said, I didn't bring you in here to watch that so that we can judge somebody on a situation that we don't know the backstory on how they got themselves in.
Yeah.
This is obviously an abusive relationship. She's obviously trying to get away. Mm-hmm. You don't know what kind of grooming. You don't know what led to her being in that situation where she felt like she couldn't get out. So I use it as an opportunity to teach her about that, teach her about those signs to look for with guys that you're gonna start dating.
Man. Yeah, right. Those red flags.
Exactly, those red flags. But then I also use it as an opportunity to tell. I say, hey, have you ever seen Daddy do that to Mama? No. I said, have you ever seen Daddy do anything close to that?
So don't.
No. I said, have I ever done that to you? I said, no. I said, if you ever have a friend that tells you that something like that is going on, you tell them to get away, and you get an adult. You get somebody to intervene. Yeah. I say, if a man, I say, you ever hear Daddy call Mama out of her name and disrespect her in front of y'all? No. I said, does Daddy do that to you? No. I said, so I'm setting the standard for how a man should communicate with you and should treat you, right?
Absolutely.
So if you start talking to one of these little knuckleheads and they start talking to you sideways, you got to set them boundaries and be like, no, I'm not going to put up with that.
Before we get to that point, we scare them away before we get to that point.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Exactly. Well, absolutely.
Bad boys. You seen that? Reggie.
I'm Chitty bang bang. That was my favorite movie. Right? So I also want to open that line of communication so she feels comfortable coming and talking to me.
Yeah.
And me and my wife do a good job. Like, she'll pick certain things up and talk to her about it. I'll talk to her while I'm dropping off at school. Yeah. But
that's a new way of parenting, though.
It is, man.
Not being afraid to get these, these topics that are current, that are negative, and, teaching your kids from that. So they don't think it's okay.
Imagine how much harder that would be if I had been teaching her, no, because I said so.
Yeah.
Is she gonna be open to having that dialogue with me?
Like any kid, they're just gonna figure it out themselves, and now you undoing a bunch of things that you could have prevented from just, hey, let me explain this to you.
Absolutely.
Because now they're gonna come to you in different moments without you coming and bringing something to their attention. Yeah. They're gonna ask you questions now.
Yeah.
And then that sparks a whole nother conversation of parent to child. I'm teaching you something and things like that.
Man, I don't want to jump into a whole thing because that's a whole nother episode of like how to address certain conversations with your kids and how to bring it up and the difference between how we were taught and how they were taught.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode, man. But really, like I said, it's about checking your ego at the door, not having too much pride to admit when you're wrong. And that starts from when they're little.
Yeah.
And then you grow that relationship with them and like, okay, daddy's not perfect, mama's not perfect. They admit when they're wrong, so why can't I admit when I'm wrong? Which is then going to grow a stronger relationship with your kids.
Yep.
And then, you're like we said, we're raising good people, good human beings. That's the ultimate goal at the end of the day.
That's all. As a parent, at the end of the day, you just want to know that you've instilled the right, morals and values in your kid. And then that, it cuts down on your stress and things like when they go out into the real world and they become adults and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about them as much.
Yeah. Because
they're going to be doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to lead us into this next one, man. Learning from your mistakes. Learning from your mistakes. And that's broad. We could do a whole episode on that, right?
We could.
Yeah, but we gonna touch on it right now, man. Like learning from, like we said, when you make a mistake and you too hard on your kids, or you make a mistake and you say something, you're gonna
make mistakes, period. Nobody's perfect.
Nope.
Yeah, you're gonna mess up.
Absolutely.
You got to be able to address it. I think the best lessons are learning from life experiences, mistakes. If you can't make that mistake, I don't think you're going to learn. You're going to take everything for granted and take advantage of everything because you haven't navigated and failed or made a mistake to learn from it. So,
absolutely.
We have enough examples in the world because everything is on social media, everything's on the news, and what to learn from.
Absolutely.
So take the time and just analyze it. Whether you've gone through it, a friend's gone through it, a family member's gone through it, you can learn from anybody or anything that you've personally gone through.
Yeah.
So that, for me, learning from mistakes, I love it.
I do.
Because it teaches you, just like in policing, you might have a scene that you never had before. But by the time you've had it a second or third or fourth time, you know how to handle it. Same thing at home with your wife, with your kids, with your friends. The uncomfortable. I love having the uncomfortable conversations. Because they're no longer uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They have to be had.
Absolutely.
So when you can get to that point where you're just comfortable in your own skin, but also being able to articulate different things with somebody else and having that understanding, they might not understand it. They might be standoffish, attitude, shut down because they're uncomfortable. But the more that you have those conversations and stuff like that, it becomes normal.
Man, there's wisdom in wins. but the best lessons are taught in the loss, man. The best
Like
lessons
coach. What coach you get that
man,
from,
I'm
man?
telling you, the best lessons
You
are with
get
else.
that.
And so, like, we raise our kids, and we want to give them everything that we didn't have. We don't want them to go through the adversity that we may have dealt with. We don't want them to have the shortcomings that we had, right?
That's why we work hard.
But the beauty of sports is being able to teach them through their losses, through their mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's why I learned how to overcome it. Well, I learned how to overcome adversity the way I grew up, but I can't
But sports probably enhanced it.
it does, but I can't put that in I can't instill it. I can tell my kids all day about how daddy went through this, daddy went through that, but it's just a story that daddy's telling.
Yeah.
But when you actually try and do something at school and you make a mistake, or you try and play in this game and you end up losing, yeah, it hurts, right? But what are you going to learn from it? How you going to come back better from it? That's
how you learn.
That's the best thing, man. Yeah. That's the best thing. And, like, I learn from my mistakes all the time in my marriage. Yeah. I learn from my mistakes all the time with my kids. Yeah. I try my best not to make mistakes when I'm at work, but I'm human.
Man. You're dealing with humans. Man. That happen bad days. You know, I mean, like, mistakes are meant to learn from. So, you know, embrace it. You're going to make mistakes. You can't walk on eggshells around life and think you're never going to mess up. So make your mistakes, learn from them, and keep moving forward. Man, that's
the main thing, dog. That's the main thing. And, like, you can ask anybody that deal with me, whether it be my wife, my kids, or my officers as a supervisor. Like, hey, I'm not perfect. Yeah. I met with each one of my officers when I went on patrol, and that was my conversation with them. Hey, tell me about yourself, I'll tell you about me. But let me go ahead and set the your expectations. I am not perfect. I do not know everything. But I guarantee I can learn something from you, and you can learn something from me. Absolutely. Whether that be inside law enforcement or outside law enforcement. If you ask me something and I don't have the answer to it, I know how to find it. And I'm going to make sure that I teach you how to fish and teach you how to find it as well. Yep. And if I make a mistake, if I fall short, if I, you try and get me to come through for something for you and I don't, live up to your standards, then let me know so that I can grow. And one of the things that a lot of police departments do, and ours does as well, is they have JPRs, right? Those are your quarterly evaluations. And so as a supervisor, I'm supposed to let you know how you're doing, command presence, with your documentation, how you handle yourself on your scene, all that good stuff. We grade it up, and then we give you a grade. We can give you feedback on things we want you to improve on, right? Things that you made mistakes on, right, that we want you to stop making those same mistakes. Well, I do that. But at the end, when I had them sign, I don't let them leave the office before I ask for feedback. How can I be a better supporter of you? Yeah. How can I be a better supervisor for you? Because who am I to grade you and give you feedback on how you can be better and what areas you can improve? And then I don't want to take any feedback. I got too much pride. My ego is too big, and I'm just sending you on your way. Like, nah, man, I'm trying to be the best. The best version of myself as well, right? Yeah. And I feel like as men, like, you got to check that. You got to be able to humble yourself. And I firmly believe, like, if you humble yourself, you're going to be put in rooms with people smarter than you. All the time. And you got to be humble enough to go up to them and ask them for that knowledge.
Yeah, learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you remove your ego and be coachable.
Like we said, man, humble yourself, learn from your mistakes, check your ego at the door, and don't let your pride get in the way of you growing as a man and as a person, as a provider, a husband, and as a professional. And you're going to be on the way, to success. Right?
And I agree,
man. So that wraps up another episode for us, man. Episode 2 in the books. Man. Right? I ain't going to go all into it, but I like to end my episodes the same way, man. So for all y'all that haven't heard this before, as you move on your purpose, as you are trying to figure out what your gift is, we'll get into that, right? When you get on that lane and you're getting ready to run that race in life,
preach.
Make sure you put your head down. And if you run your race at your pace, when you lift your head up and you're not worried about what's going on the left and right of you, I guarantee you're going to be moving on your purpose.
Yes, sir.
We'll see y'all next time.
Stay in your lane. Till then.